Hey, Sag. Let me tell you, by the time I get to fellow fire signs videos, I'm like very excited and very happy to be tapping into this energy. Hey, so it's Monday. It's September 28th. We are in Libra season. We're looking at a full moon on Thursday in opposition to Libra in Aries. So the energy for you is harmonious. Sagittarius and Aries make a harmonious angle with each other, so this energy is hopefully going to feel good to you. It will be triggering, perhaps, I'm going to say the day after the full moon, perhaps triggering to some emotional trauma that you may have from the past, particularly if you both have Sagittarius energy in the sun, moon, or rising sign, and also in your south node. So for me, that's going to translate as situations presenting themselves that give you an opportunity to rework some of your emotional responses, behaviors, also like the sort of program that you run. In fact, really strongly, this is what it is. Programming that you run when one of your old emotional wounds are triggered. So you could even have emotional wounding around physical pain, re-injure that part of your body, and then find yourself feeling like the way that you felt back then, which could perhaps stir up some feelings of hopelessness and the illusion that things haven't changed very much. So even though we may find ourselves back in the same place where we were years ago, because our mindset takes on those negative feelings that get stirred up by the re-wounding, or just, perhaps a gentle poke could be felt, really is quite painful where you have these old wounds, right? And I don't know if they're emotional or physical. For some reason, it's really coming through as both. I wrote down here, if the unresolved karma you're carrying isn't being injured or inflamed at this time, that it's likely you're having that effect on someone else. So if what I just shared with you is not true for your experience, take a look at the person that you are closest to and see how they are doing. Usually the person closest to you, either your partner, your enemy, or your children. Also maybe like your best friend. Use bravery to move through fear, reminding yourself that courage isn't an absence of fear, but rather the willingness to move forward in spite of it. Okay, so I've said this more than once, and I don't mean to be a dead horse, but I feel like this is really critical and something that if you could like get this lesson handled, you'll be like ahead of so many of us. The lesson here is that even though you can be so blunt and you can make this these sort of like flippant response or jokes come through in a situation where some seriousness would actually be appreciated or reverence, and you're able to like perhaps tell people about the spinach in their teeth after they eat and it's not that big of a deal. Well, that sort of flippant attitude and being willing to sort of say whatever comes across your mind doesn't usually transfer to vulnerability. So even though you're kind of willing to say whatever, if there is a deep emotional thing that you need to talk about, like, I felt blank when you blank, right? I felt insecure when you didn't respond to my text message. Saying something like that takes a lot of bravery and a willingness to be in that zone of vulnerability and perhaps looking like a fool. You are willing to look like a fool if it's going to get you a laugh. This is a chance to play around with what kind of emotional maturity gains can I make by having this experience of transferring my willingness to be blunt to my willingness to share what I really feel. Not that I really think that your shirt is ugly. I mean, good for you that you're able to not lie to people when they ask how they look and you can just tell them the truth. Like, great. I'm glad that you're able to be authentic about that. Can you transfer some of that into some personal and emotional growth? That's what we'd like to know, because that's what you've been complaining about, and that's what's been holding you back, right? You really don't want to keep dealing with this forever. You really do want to be able to resolve conflict in real time. You really do want to be understood by your partner. And I'm asking you to give them a chance to understand you by being able to know how you really feel. I feel like they know a lot about who you are in terms of the way that you grew up and sort of the way that people would describe you, what you're like on paper, for instance. But how about the way that you really feel, starting maybe not with how they make you feel, but how you really genuinely feel about something else. Let's say something like your family. So the family that you grew up with, whatever that dynamic was like, and sharing with your important person about how you have always had a hard time with this certain component. Maybe thinking that your sibling was the favored by your parents. And if there's room to have that discussion with your partner and for them to show up for you. And here, like, maybe you're gonna watch the Libra video. I think that it would be helpful. Actually, I'm gonna tell everybody that it will be helpful for them, because the Libra energy is affecting all of us at this time, so you can tap into that. Being impeccable with your word. And so when you are describing how you feel, you're not describing that your dad was an asshole, okay? Your dad maybe is or was an asshole, but that doesn't have anything to do with emotional vulnerability, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you to pretend that your dad was wonderful. I'm talking about owning how you felt when you were a kid. And it could be that you have learned so much in retrospect. Hopefully you've been doing some inner child work, because that is up for all of us in terms of personal growth. So I hope you've been working on it. If you haven't, perhaps it's not the best time to be speaking to your loved one about these things, but to actually start doing some research about how to heal the inner child and the early childhood wounding that you may have experienced that's left that hasn't been processed. So, okay, I'll finish up with what I noted here and let you go, Sag. I know you have things to do. So, oh, here one more thing is, here's another thing that could be helpful in terms of how to get through what feels like pretty heavy energy for you. Using creative visualizations and being willing to dream of a better way to do something. So creative visualizations to help you feel better if you've been triggered is one way to look at it. And then another thing, and creatively visualizing yourself feeling good and using some affirmations, descriptions. I'm a word person, so I do really well with affirmations, but other folks really like to picture like beautiful environments where they would feel peaceful. I can talk myself into feeling peaceful by using words, but imagining what it looks like where you would feel peaceful and loved, imagining what it feels like would be really neat. But then also using the imagination and the ability to visualize and be creative while understanding that not every solution rather is linear or logical. Some solutions may not make that much sense, but could have a really positive effect. And thank you for listening. Whoops, bye-bye.